Retro Hangover supported via Patreon by listeners like you. We would especially like to thank patrons Lyle McCarnes, Ashton Ruby, Randall Quiggle, Tony G, Stud Still Smash the Milkman, Keith Gasper, Katie Quigg, JC, Megan Caruso, Mass Keaton, Andrew LaGuarri, Ozzy Garcia, The Retro Vixen, Adam from The Good, the Bad, and the Backlog, Lunchbox, aka The Disgruntled Gamer, Dischimera, Jenny E, Rick Firestone, Parallax Puddles, Soha, Dave Jackson, Matt, aka Stormageddon, Retro Overdrive, B. Ross and Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day, Raging Demon, Eric Guess, Nomad from the Retro Wildlands Podcast, Ash Event, Alan Bingham, Ryan Player One, MikeTheRef from Backbreaker Gaming, Darth Emick, Low5 Alex, Alt, Redder Dreaming, and Oh Me. Your continued engagement and generous donations are deeply appreciated. I just want to go. Good state. Couldn't avoid that.
Put that in, Ashton.
I know he will.
Open your ears and crack some beers. You are listening to the most recent episode of Retro Hangover.
Retro and classic gamers, welcome to the podcast where we intellectually infer instant instincts initializing immediate illiteracy. This is Retro Hangover. I am your co-host, Chris Copleen, with special guest MikeTheRef from Backbreaker Gaming, and, as always, your host, Shane Combo Breaker Dick
I am a fan of our alliteration this week. Just the notion of it, like initiating illiteracy through instinct. There's something about that. You just empty brain immediately.
It explains my life.
That was insanity in a very intellectual, immaculate way of doing things. I'm trying. I'm failing miserably. What can I say?
A for effort. No, that was good.
Thank you, good sir.
I was hoping for an I for effort, but what the heck? But anyway.
You get an upside down exclamation point instead.
Woo!
Interrobang.
All seriousness, guys, it is great to be here and talking a little Killer Instinct this week. This is going to be a ton of fun. And I do have to admit, I just lost $5 because I did bet some of the patrons about what you were going to use for the intro. And I was thinking about going Ultra Combo, but you went Combo Breakers, so you win.
I almost went Ultra because this is a celebration of the two games that I think most people identify with. The Ultra 64. Been 30 years.
Absolutely.
So this month, if you know anything about the attract screen for Killer Instinct, then you know that the Ultra 64 was the big thing. We're going to talk about that in our brief history. But first and foremost, Mike, thank you so much. Thank you for being on the show. People who follow your work, and I know that's going to be in the show notes. That's going to be at the end of the episode, what you plug. But you do have a Twitch channel that I'm on every Wednesday and Saturday, if I can, for where I watch AEW Dynamite and Collision with you. And you do a great job there. And I'm so happy that you could be part of our show. Been a Prime sub for 2 years, and been watching you for about 2.5 years now. So I'm glad we can make this happen.
Something to that effect. Yeah, it's been a while, and I appreciate having you there. It's always a fun and lively chat, and those 2 days of the week are just absolutely amazing. And then when we get into the fighting game streams, it's just as fun as well. And I will tell you this game gets me excited on so many levels, whichever iteration you're talking about. So I am really looking forward to this episode here this week.
Oh, hell yeah.
And thank you for having me on.
Hey, you love your fighting games. It's either at you or Demon whenever we need to talk about fighting games. So happy need to be
Shout
here.
out to Raging Demon, the absolute king of fighting games over here on the channel. So
Absolutely.
Man, I
Love
can't
to.
wait to listen to the two of you talk about this game.
Hi, Shane. I know
Hey.
you've been kind of sitting over there in a corner. I didn't get the cuck chair for this one. I'm sorry.
Oh,
But maybe next time. I know. But hey, we're going to get into an episode about Killer Instinct like we were already talking about. But before we do, as we are wont to do, we'd like to talk about the games that we have been playing lately. And as is tradition, we start out with our guest. So, Mike, what games have you been playing lately?
it's more like what games haven't I been playing lately?
Ooh.
The Twitch stream's going nuts. Right now I'm in the middle of Tears of the Kingdom. I do a little MLB The Show when I get time. WWE 2K24. We've been running through a GM mode. A little bit of a Mario Golf on the side. I'm actually playing a bit of a Minesweeper ripoff. I'll be honest, I play it so much I can't remember the name of it on the Switch. Every once in a while, I'll just fire up a random fighting game whenever I feel interested. I know that I played KI on stream to get ready for this show, but I'm also KI 2013, just such a tribute to this whole early series as well. So yes, I've been playing a lot. Sorry if I rambled there.
Oh, we're very familiar with rambling. We've been told that this is the waffle section, so feel free, ramble.
yeah. Ashton makes us sound intelligent and succinct.
He does.
If it's all you can eat waffles, I'll be here for a while.
Oh, I would be too. I'd be right with you there, especially if there's Nutella involved. Speaking of, I don't know what I'm speaking of. But
Nutella?
anyway, Shane, what have you been playing? Yeah, speaking of Nutella, what have you been playing,
You know
Shane?
what? I'll take that. That's fine. Also, if you're going to do Nutella, it's got to be crepes, man. Nutella crepes. That's where it's at.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, 100%. But I put them on a waffle too, with peanut butter and honey. Come at me.
Jesus, that's a lot. Anyway, what have I been playing? Well, completely polar opposite of our most esteemed guest. I ain't been playing shit. So there you go. One of these days, I'm going to play video games again, said the man who hosts a video game podcast. I don't know when, but I sure will get around to it. The closest thing I've got right now is I am just trying to wrap up some things for my seasonal journey for my character in Diablo 4 because I am very much anticipating season 4 to drop this month.
Ooh.
Because they are doing the massive loot and systems overhaul. And by all accounts on the public test realm, it is shaping up to be really good. So I'm actually kind of hyped for that. So this section is more about me talking about games that I'm looking forward to playing, less than what I'm actually doing right now. So there you go. Chris, what about you? What have you been doing?
I've been playing Saturn games for IO Saturnalia.
Praise Saturn, by the way.
Praise Saturn. Praise Saturn.
And what is that? The people asked.
Let me get into that. So if you're listening to this on the 12th, which you should be, IO Saturnalia came out yesterday to all our patrons at the 16-bit tier or above. And what that is my attempt to try and do a chronological review of every North American Saturn game. I think there's like 248 of them, 248, 247. So that's going to be a huge task and huge undertaking. I have a lot of work to do, so I've been playing Saturn games. So I know I've been mentioning this on the podcast a couple of days ago, but now this actually actualized. You can go check that out. And one of the driving reasons, I know Mike's kind of related to it in a way, as you heard him say, praise Saturn, is I was part of another community. I mean, I still am. I'm not as active there anymore just because I'm just not as active on Discord anymore. Even our own community, but I am active there. Not to dissuade you. That sounded horrible. God, I'm terrible at advertising.
Let's just say we're busy people. That's the best way to put it.
We are busy people. But it's part of the Remember the Game podcast community where Adam Blank who has been on the show before for their Kirby episode. He called everyone who liked Saturn and wanted him to play Saturn games Saturnians and compared them to lice and other horrible forms of life. No, it's all tongue in cheek. It's all jokes. But so I was thinking, if I'm going to push for so much Saturn content, so much Saturn love, I need to actually put my money where my mouth is and start doing something with it. So that's what IO Saturnalia is all about. Spreading the love of the Sega Saturn, all the games, all the bad games, all the good games, all the amazing games, and get that out there to the public. So recently I'm making good progress. on what games I've been playing, I played a game called Robotica, which isn't that great, but it's a first-person shooter from 1995. If that gives you any idea why that game might not be great. It also has roguelike elements where all the maps are randomly generated, and upon death, all your items and like weapons reset to one level. So that's an interesting game. I played Street Fighter the movie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna say I played that game. Actually, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. As long as you stay away from the movie battle mode.
Oh, God.
It's an ugly looking Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo.
Very ugly and very disproportionate. And I'd almost want to burn it with fire, but I know so many other fighting games that are worse than that. That's the worst part about it.
There are far worse fighting games than Street Fighter the movie. There definitely are. And then today I played a game called Minnesota Fat's Pool Legend, which is a very obscure game, I think. And I had a good time with it.
Is that named after a person?
Yes. His name is Minnesota Fats.
Wait,
Okay.
if it's a pool game, wouldn't it be more obtuse than anything else? You're dealing with angles and all that?
I think I'm going to come up with an acute review.
I'm sorry, I tried.
It was a good effort. But other than that, I really haven't been playing anything. I think I played like 15 minutes of Aiden Chronicles, and then I haven't been able to pick it up since, which is unfortunate because I really want to dive into that game. I spent enough money back in the damn thing. So I do need to get into that. There's a lot of games I need to get into that I haven't. But yeah, everything I've been doing recently has been for the almighty content. For better or for worse, that's what we do here when you become a podcaster and you're a busy guy. So
Amen.
yeah, that's me. That's me.
I suppose on that note, we probably ought to talk about, the game we're all here for, the thing that we were doing for the content. So, Chris, would you mind giving the people at home a little bit of a brief history of Killer Instinct?
Fighting games were the bee's knees in the early to mid 1990s. Street Fighter II opened the floodgates in 1991 in arcades, and then once again in 1992 when it arrived on a massively successful home console port. Mortal Kombat would keep the interest in the genre going, introducing over-the-top violence and gore in addition to being a competent fighting game, improving in almost every way with the sequel, Mortal Kombat 2. Almost every single developer was trying to get a piece of that fighting game action, and in 1994, Nintendo would be no exception. They would get developer Rare, who had delivered a massive hit with Donkey Kong Country, and place them in charge of creating it. This would also double as a method of advertising their upcoming console, the Ultra 64, as Nintendo would claim that this new fighting game, Killer Instinct, would be running on similar architecture. But let's go back to 1993, when Killer Instinct would find its beginnings. Game designer Ken Lobb was working at Namco and wanted to pitch a fighting game to his employer. The idea was coined as Melee. Namco rejected Lobb's idea, instead opting for what would eventually become the Super Nintendo and Genesis game Weapon Lord. Determined, Lobb then pitched his idea to Nintendo of America, who liked the idea and decided to fully spearhead it. Rare, at the time, was looking to make a fighting game in the same vein as Mortal Kombat, so Nintendo flew Lobb out to England to begin development. At the same time, Nintendo would be making a deal with Williams, the parent company of Midway, that would allow Midway to help develop and market their games in the arcade, specifically for the upcoming Ultra 64. Interestingly, the arcade hardware used would not mirror the final specs of that home console, later renamed the Nintendo 64, that was developed by Midway and Rare and was slightly more powerful. Killer Instinct was released in the arcade in North America on October 28, 1994, with the attract screen stating that it would be available in your home on the Ultra 64 in 1995. And while the arcade game went on to be a massive hit, the most popular arcade game of January 1995, and in the top 5 most top-grossing games of that year, the promise of a home version would end up being slightly misleading. While there would certainly be a home version released in 1995, The Nintendo 64 would be delayed an additional year, meaning getting the game in the hands of anxious consumers in that promised window had to result in some compromises. Nintendo decided to instead release the game on their current home console, the Super Nintendo, which at this time was 5-year-old hardware and obviously not powerful enough to capture the entire arcade experience. It would see release on August 30th, 1995 in North America and September 21st in Europe. Many of the game's features had to be downgraded to include graphics, animations, the elimination of 3D panning, and audio quality. Despite this considerable drop in fidelity, Killer Instinct would continue to be a massive success. Critics said that while the game was good, it just couldn't compare to its coin-op counterpart. But some, such as computer and video games, stated that while looking and sounding worse, actually it played better. Commercially, there was no deterrence in reception, as it went on to sell 3.2 million units, the 13th best-selling game on the Super Nintendo. Killer Instinct would receive a sequel aptly called Killer Instinct 2 in 1996, which would receive a port of sorts to the Nintendo 64 as Killer Instinct Gold. The series as a whole would lay dormant, however, until 2013, when Rare and Microsoft released a reboot as a launch game for the Xbox One, a game that is still receiving support to this day. Versions of the original can be found on Xbox as Killer Instinct Classic, and the Super Nintendo version can be found on Nintendo Switch Online services. And that is your brief history of Killer Instinct.
Humiliation.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris, for that brief history. Now, I know we usually jump kind of right into our personal experiences with the game du jour. Who would like to go first? Because it's not going to be me.
Okay. Let's kick this off because I think, Mike, you have a really interesting one. Normally we save the interesting one to last.
Okay, fair enough.
But since Shane does not want to go first, I think you should.
Oh, I thought, okay. I'm like, wait a second here. Oh, never mind. Okay.
I'm switching it up. I'm confusing everyone.
It doesn't take much to confuse me. But anyway, growing up, I actually lived about an hour and a half northeast of Edmonton, basically an hour and a half drive away from civilization. And we'd always come into town to get groceries and all that stuff that adults do, and they drag the kids along. So me as a teenager, I would say, go ahead and do whatever you want. I'm going to the arcade. All of a sudden, you hear that sound, that intro. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. And Killer Instinct. And all of a sudden, you're just walking right over to it. I don't know how many quarters I put into that, which, by the way, was 50 cents at a time, not just a quarter in it. I don't know if it was different for you guys in the States, but that game was so addicting. And the fact that it ran so fast, it just kept going and going. And then when you hear that there was a version on the Super Nintendo, I would actually physically go out and rent the Super Nintendo machine and the game. That would be my weekend play for it when it came out. Boy, was it a little different, to say the least. But we can talk about that a little bit more when we talk about graphics here. But It was such a fun time. Like, it was an extra incentive for me to get to town all the time just to play this dang game. It was very addictive and a lot of fun. And I think the fact that it runs on a different premise compared to most fighting games at the time, in terms of their scoring system and how your meter bar goes around, I think that, number one, sucked a ton more money out of me than it really should have. And two, made you feel like you were playing it a lot more than you actually did. I don't know if there's much more to that, but I could just remember all the time just literally hitting the arcade and just seeing where that machine is. And I was about ready to throw elbows with a guy that would try to hog that machine for any longer than he needed to there.
You gotta put your quarters up. You gotta beat them in the game too. That's how you gotta throw those elbows.
Well, no, we're in Canada here. We throw elbows just like on the hockey rink, right?
Oh, you only get a 5-minute major, and then you're right back in there.
Well, yeah, no, you make sure the referee doesn't see you. He sees the retaliation. He goes to the box, and I get to do what I want. Anyway,
Shane is a hockey player, probably understands that quite a bit.
I do appreciate it. Yes.
So for me, I'll let you go last, Shane, because
thanks.
You sound very averse to going. Well, yeah. Well, you're welcome.
I mean, I just wasn't gonna start, but I mean, you can go. Go ahead. I'm not gonna stop
fine,
you.
Fine. You can finish. We all like finishers.
Well, I will.
Yeah. The first memory I have of Killer Instinct, I went up to Madison, much like Mike here. Like my mother, it wasn't for groceries because Madison was like 2.5 hours away from where I lived, so we weren't going there for groceries. We were going there because she wanted to see an old friend of hers because she's an alum from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, and that's where a couple of her friends were still living. So we went up there, and I just remember, I don't know if it was on campus or in some building or something like that outside of the campus of the university, but I remember seeing that arcade machine. I remember playing it. I remember the biggest thing about it was because you only saw about it in magazines, like your EGMs or your Game Pros or something like that, like Killer Instincts in the arcades. And I hadn't seen it in the arcades for whatever reason, but this was the first time I saw it in the arcade. And here it was. It was this video game that was the first demonstration about what the Nintendo 64, the Ultra 64 was going to be, like coming up real soon. And of course, if you're a kid and you love your video game systems, we all love new video game systems, whether it was going to be from Sega or Nintendo, which, Sega didn't exactly slam dunk the next one, but Nintendo, they were promoting this and it was so interesting. Like, what's the future of games? What's it going to look like? And I remember Killer Instinct looking so good. And just like Mike saying, that attract screen with that music, I can't wait to talk about music in this episode because that is so iconic. And the way it's just like, coming to your Ultra 64 1995. And it was like, yeah! And it played, and it played a lot like it had a graphical style that was better, but very similar to like Mortal Kombat, which of course is what everyone was all about. And of course, it came to the Super Nintendo, much like Mike said, in that black cartridge, that like coal black cartridge. And it was like just beautiful.
It was jet black, like you. It would absorb every little piece of light that would come near it. That's how dark it was. And it just fantastic.
That Hot Topic ass cartridge.
It was emo as fuck. I remember just looking at that, it looked so cool, and I can't remember if I got it or if I just rented it a lot, but I remember playing it a ton. Not even learning combos, just button mashing and just having a great time with it. I loved this game as a kid. I really did. Like, this was a game I like remember fondly as hell. So getting back to it, will that hold up? We'll find out. But by the way, I do want to correct the record. I fucked up last episode. I think this would be the perfect opportunity to do that. Rare did not make Star Fox 64. I am an idiot. Sorry. And I just wanted to say that. I am dumb. But personal experiences, Shane.
So let's see. My personal experience. I do remember seeing this at the local arcade in my hometown. I remember really liking, the cabinet artwork. Fulgor's pretty fucking cool.
Oh yeah.
It's odd because like because I'm not a huge fighting game person, like I always just sort of like gravitate to whatever the coolest looking character is and then just kind of call it a day. So like for this, I was just like, yeah, right. Fulgor's pretty awesome. Also, I would probably also play a Spinal just because I'm like, yeah, it's a fucking skeleton. Yeah, sure. Let's do that. Funny because I never thought about it until today, actually, that he's just a full on Jason and the Argonauts like stop motion skeleton. Mm-hmm. And I think that might be part of the reason why I like it so much. But so, I tinkered around with it in the arcades, was bad at it like I usually am, but, enjoyed my time. They got their money's worth out of me. That's for sure. And funnily enough, I did not own a home console version of this, although I believe I actually have the N64 cartridge now. I don't know when or where. I just assume it materialized in my house at some point. But I did own the Game Boy version. So I played that one. So there's that.
So you did not remember it fondly as a child?
I mean, yeah, not really.
You remember it.
I sure do remember it. Yes.
It was serviceable.
I don't think that came out as a colored cartridge either.
No,
It was just a straight gray
It
cartridge.
was
No.
Wow. That, you know what? For what it had for the hardware, it wasn't a bad game. Unfortunately, the hardware was very primitive for that game. So
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I find it very interesting that they went ahead with that one, but then when Rare was like contractually obligated to create a Super Nintendo version of KI2, Nintendo was just like, yeah, that's nice. We're not going to release it though.
doesn't surprise me.
The wonderful world of making up for missed opportunities. So this is a fighting game. I don't know the plot of this
Allow
game.
me to fill in the gaps for you, my kind sir.
There we go. That's why we got Mike on here.
Oh, thank God.
What you got?
It really did get elaborate a little bit more in KI 2013 to explain a lot more. So we did have the advantage of hindsight here. Basically, the world has been corrupted and blown up by this alien force known as Idol. There's different storylines behind every character. For example, B Orchid is a secret agent that is looking to investigate everything and take out Idol in this case. Cinder was a member of, I think he was a criminal that ended up taking an experimental test that turned his body into flame. Glacius was an alien from another planet coming to and try to figure out what was going on with the whole thing here. Fulgor was, of course, the cybernetic, absolutely insane guy that came in here. Jago, the stereotypical ninja story. Thunder, your Native American who wanted to avenge his brother being taken by this Ultratech company and made into, I do believe eventually they said that he was possibly Fulgor, or they put him into Kilgore, is another character that came up in 2013. There are individual character storylines, but let's face it, it's a fighting game. You don't take your storylines too seriously. Rather than the common day now's actual story that you play through, it's simply just an arcade ladder to that point. So the character I use quite often when I started out, TJ Combo, he was a boxer that got enhancements in his gloves by Ultratech. And then when he was caught, he was stripped of all his titles and banned from boxing. And now he's going out to avenge the world to get his glory back. Everybody's got a stupid story involved. The stories do make sense if you take your brain at a high speed and put it in low speed. There's still a story there. And the big baddie out of all this is Idol.
I mean, that makes sense because everything you said made sense to me.
I'm glad I could tell stories here. I guess
Well,
you
you said put it in low speed, so their backgrounds. I'm getting it. I'm picking it up.
Just don't try to connect the dots too much here.
Yeah.
There is some dots to put together, but they didn't think about that a whole lot when they were doing up the game here. So
Yeah. Now, when I watched you play it on Twitch, because when I beat the game, it told me that I sucked and I need to get good. So there's that. But when I saw you beat the game, because you beat it with Cinder, who is my main in this game, and it actually gave you an ending.
The fun part was I actually beat it 3 times on that stream.
Mm-hmm.
I beat it with combo with 2 stars, and basically it said, you know, you really suck. We set it up so that the guys can only do a maximum of 5-hit combos, and you barely beat him. Try better. The second time I did it with Orchid on 3-star, and it said, still needs some work, maximum 8 combo, but it actually gave me the credits at the end of it. Then when you go for 4-star, which is the default when you open it up, by the way, this is on the Super Nintendo for people that are asking here, on the Rare Replay on the Switch. It does actually give you a bit of a character ending and then the credits. It almost makes me wonder what the 5 and 6 are. I'm sure it's a little more detailed as to the story part, so.
Just lock that information behind getting good.
Yeah.
You have to bang your head against a wall.
Basically. They actually have very corny stories to finish it off. Like when we finished the Cinder one on the stream there, the end of the story is Cinder coming out after beating Idol, and all of a sudden the cops are coming to arrest him, so he turns into a ball of fire and flies away into seclusion. So there's your crazy story like that. So
Well, he definitely went into seclusion because Cinder did not show back up in Killer Instinct 2. Those bastards. How dare they take Cinder away from me?
I can imagine the reason why.
Because he was cheap.
Well, I think more of the Sprite issue on that one.
We'll get to that in graphics, I assume, because I want to know more about that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, not much of a plot here. Thank you, Mike, for getting into that. I know they all had their backgrounds, but the minute you press start, there's nothing there. It's a fighting game, as it probably should be, because that's how we like our fighting games. Outside of Tekken, because Tekken, those endings when you throw people off volcanoes, that's pretty important.
Absolutely.
Shane, do you have anything to add here?
Other than canonically, Fulgore is 6'5" and weighs 560 pounds. No,
I can relate.
Really? Can you?
No.
I think we can relate together, maybe.
Yeah, together,
Yeah,
combined.
there we go. Collectively, yeah.
Yes. Now it's time to get into the meat of the episode here, which is the gameplay. Now, I think most people are going to look at Killer Instinct if they are uninitiated, and they're going to immediately think Mortal Kombat clone.
No.
I mean,
What do you mean? You mean
it started out that way.
it did start out that way? In fact, I saw a report that started out as a wrestling game.
Actually, it was it's another game in the long line of wrestling games that got squashed and turned into something else. Sort of in the line of what happened with Def Jam Vendetta, I do believe it was.
That came out, didn't it? Def Jam Vendetta?
Yeah,
It was supposed to be a
That was
wrestling
supposed to be
game. Okay, got it.
WCW Mayhem 2, so
Oh, but WCW got bought out by that point, I'm sure.
that's a whole different episode for another time, probably. So,
Oh, yeah.
but
It's not like Mortal Kombat. In fact, it shares kind of more. It's its own thing. It has some similarities with like Darkstalkers in terms of its. Do you know what came out first, Darkstalkers or Killer
I
Instinct?
do believe it was Darkstalkers, but they were coming out they were being developed at the same time, so it was sort of the same concept between the both. Because I know that Capcom was as soon as Street Fighter came through, Capcom was throwing through those fighting games like what's the best example I give of
Like water through an open dam. I don't know. Would that
like
work?
a cheap family going through a buffet? I don't know. Maybe that would be better, but just going through it as much as we humanly can, as fast as possible. Just trying to suck out every dollar you can with all these different ones. But I do believe, yes, Darkstalkers did come out before this one. This one here, I think, defined a little bit more of combining all the motions compared to the Capcom style, the SNK style, the Mortal Kombat style. In terms of button presses, like when you were watching me on stream, you were watching me cheese out half the time when Cinder's basically 2 buttons forward and a punch, and you can just throw into that ball and just literally rip through them and like nothing, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like the name of the game that I've noticed with Killer Instinct is speed, speeding combos. And that's what it is. And I think you made a great point when you brought up the other series that were big at the time, because everyone was trying to really replicate what Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter were doing. And to an extent, this game does as well, but not to the full extent that other games were, because you have, it's not at all like SNK games. Not at all. It's not even the same
there were
like
a few
discussion.
button combinations that were introduced similar to what SNK games were delivering, sort of like the King of Fighters. Like, for example, one of Orchid's special moves is actually down, forward, down, back, down, which is nothing that you would do in a North American game.
No,
and there were some.
Yeah, you're right.
There were some weird button press combinations, but they did use the best of all three. So
yeah, you're right. Because playing with a lot of these characters, it had like the very simplified inputs that you would get from Mortal Kombat, where if you're listening to this, like a Mortal Kombat would, instead of having down 2 forward, would be down forward in order to execute a special move. Whereas like in Street Fighter, it'd be down 2 forward. So you have to press down and then roll your thumb up to the forward button in order to execute that. And you get that a little bit with some of these characters with some Dragon Punch inputs, or as Mike was saying, when you press forward and a punch, you can get some inputs, or back forward punch, you get inputs. So there's some simplified, there's some more complicated, but at the same time, it's still blending that all to be its own unique thing. And what you're getting to is it's stressing a lot of these combos. This is probably why when you think of Killer Instinct, you think of Ultra Combo and Combo Breaker, because it's all about stringing your combos, and the best way to do combos on a very, very, very fast pace, which is very evident in the arcade mode when I tried playing Killer Instinct Classic and got my ass whooped, because there was no mercy on me. There was no mercy on me, especially when I got the Riptor. Riptor just ripped toward my ass apart. That's what happened when I got to him, because there's it's just combos, and it's fast. It's extremely fast. It's faster than any mainstream fighting game that have been released to this point. So I think there's a lot to be said for that. Before I get back to Mike, Shane, do you have anything to input here?
Yeah, well, I'm honestly, I mean, here I'm going to be the voice of negativity, so that's fine. But
Of course.
I mean, according to Mike, that's why I'm here. So I got to fulfill that duty. But I think that's actually something that's a bit of a detractor, especially for me, who's not like a big fighting game aficionado. Right? Is like this game, once you get past, like Babby's first couple matches, it becomes like painfully evident that if you're not memorizing and pulling off these specific combos, that you're just gonna get absolutely obliterated. And I know that that's one of the things that a lot of like reviewers at the time and folks playing the game, like when they first came out, kind of identified that as well, as just like to the point where even back then they were kind of referring to this as a bit archaic in how perhaps over reliant on very specific combo inputs the game actually is. Now, having said that, oddly enough, there's this weird sort of dichotomy, I guess, in that like at higher level play, you definitely want to know those combos. But then, Chris, I think to your earlier point, there's like this weird amount of leeway in this game as well. And I think some of it has to do with just the speed of things. You could probably do unreasonably well by just sort of like button mashing the shit out of stuff, which is my patented strategy. And it works 60% of the time.
Like a Sex Panther.
That's right.
Yeah.
Smells like a turd wrapped in burnt hair.
You'll get them. Anything to add to that, Mike? Because, I mean, I think that's a fair criticism.
Absolutely. But here's one thing. And if you learned it, they did teach you a defensive maneuver to help you out if you could get the timing down. And that's the one we
Is
brought
it the
up.
power button?
Not quite, but many ways I would agree with it. If you're in the arcade, you hit the power button there. I think you might have got a few punches sent your way.
True.
It was the description of you at the beginning of the show. The combo breaker. If you learned how to do the combo breaker, you were able to, if you could time it just as he's starting your combo up, you could break out of it. And that'll give you a little bit of gap where you can get a chance to get on offense. I hate to bring 2013 up, but now 2013 is set up that if you can guess what kind of strength that they're using for their attacks, whether it be light, medium, or heavy, they've now adjusted it that if you can guess the right one, you get a combo breaker and you get basically a second and a half where you just go on the complete offense and just drive them nuts there. The one thing about the combos here in this game is the fact that every set of combos had a different name for it. You had the master combo, the king combo, the super combo. I do believe there was a quad combo for 4. There's like 7 or 8 different names that they use based on the amount of combo you got in, followed by the ultimate one at the end, which is a 22 hit finisher known as the ultra combo.
I've only pulled off an ultra combo once. I don't know how I did it. I did it with Cinder.
Yep.
And I think I just kept on pressing buttons. He ended up doing it, which was great. I love the ultra combos. I would kind of counter what you were saying there, Shane, a little bit, because you said critics were saying it was archaic. I don't think it was archaic, because this was around the same time Mortal Kombat 3 came out, when they introduced the dash button, which is something I hated. But that was something that they used in order to make Mortal Kombat 3 more combo heavy, which is something a lot of other people liked. So when it came to combos, one of the reasons combos started being a thing in fighting games is because of a little accident in Street Fighter 2 that wasn't intended to have combos, but it just did. So people are starting to take advantage of it. That's how combos came to be. So by this point, it's just the full embrace of combos. So if like an actual, I don't want to say an actual criticism, because I think your criticism is valid, but and I think a better criticism of the situation is it just became overly reliant on the combo system. And if you're not into combos, and if you're not into like memorizing and going into like punishment mode, like if they have a missed block or a missed move, and you don't like to memorize all those button presses, yeah, it's going to be a harder game to get into. From what I understand, is Guilty Gear kind of the same way, like in terms of like button memorization and combo implementation?
Not as much. If you can get your combos off and get the pressure part is identical with between Guilty Gear and Killer Instinct in many ways, because it's all about keeping that pressure up, and then you get your breaks in your areas and whatnot. And they do have the certain gauges and all that. It's a little more advanced in that case, but Killer Instinct here, it is very, you get punished for missing. You get for whiffing, I believe is the correct term for it. So, but one thing we forgot to mention here, and it's probably going to be the one thing that most of the people remember about KI2, the humiliations and the brutality endings.
Oh, absolutely.
Namely the Orchid one.
Boobs.
The one thing I find hilarious about that, well, there's two things actually. One, if you did it against a guy, he would bug out his eyes and croak. If you did it against a female, she would turn around and kick her feet in disgust, like, I can't believe I lost that. It's different between guys and girls.
Clearly jealousy.
Yeah.
That wasn't Killer Instinct 1, wasn't it? And I think Orchid was the only.
It was 2 that they brought that in, I do believe.
I thought also, she showed her tits.
Yeah, it was 1. They put some of them in 1 and then added some more in 2. So
yeah, because I think the titty finisher in Killer Instinct 1, which is something that, it's a lot better than pissing on somebody like you did with Primal Rage. I'll take titties over piss any day of the week. That's a hell of a way to die. First of all, I wonder what she's packing under there, because I think that everyone's like, oh my God, that's boobs. Hey, if that's killing people, it's obviously not titties, because I mean, they'd be happy. It's a babality. It'd probably be babality in Mortal Kombat. I mean, or friendship, one of the two, right?
Well, the other thing that they actually had there was also the humiliation one, where if your opponent was in that danger zone and you still had both bars, if you hit the right sequence, you can make your opponent do a tap dance.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was, I managed to pull it off a couple times there on that stream, and it actually is really funny to see. They don't get a top hat or anything, but they have to do like a special dance to everybody just to show how bad you lost.
I just want to emphasize, you don't actually see titties. It's just inferred.
You get to see her back as she's opening her front.
Exactly. Not a bare back.
No.
It's a clothes.
Well, she wears a bodysuit, right?
Close.
So
yeah.
Which says hot on the side.
It does.
Oh my.
She's very much a product of the 90s.
Very much so.
In all the best and worst ways. No, I agree. Like, there's the humiliations, there's the finishers. Again, borrowing a lot from the mentality of the Mortal Kombat games of the time. That's definitely something that was lifted from that. You kind of needed to have that, and you were seeing that with Sega as well, with Eternal Champions, as who could like outdo each other. So it felt like a lot of that necessity, I think, when in terms of those finishing moves. By the way, I do want to go back to what we talked about when we referenced Darkstalkers, and something Mike said with 2 bars. Is that in Killer Instinct, unlike Street Fighter, where Street Fighter you have 2 rounds where 1 life bar is drained and then everything resets. In Killer Instinct, once your life bar is drained, you continue fighting. Like, you get that second life bar. If that other if the person you're playing against didn't take a single hit, you're fighting against them still with 2 life bars. Like, it's not resetting.
Nope.
So if you lose, you lose. If you drain their life bar, they still got another life bar to go. So that the only thing that happens really is that you reset, they pull you back apart, and then you can go back at it. That's like Darkstalkers in a sense. But that's what we're talking about. If you have 2 bars at the end of a battle, that's what's like it. Now, one thing I know, there's a difference in fighting games between more aggressive fighting games and more defensive fighting games. This feels like an aggressive one. It definitely emphasizes aggression, but I think if you go in with naked aggression, you're going to get your ass whipped. Would you kind of agree with that? Because they're like, I noticed if I ignored the block button, I would pay dearly for it.
You got to recognize and react. That's the biggest thing for it. If you don't recognize what other guys are doing to you, like, hell, you go up against Idol, and this is the one thing that freaked me out when I finally got to the boss. You would get like 2 or 3 hits in, then all of a sudden he's getting 8 or 9, and all of a sudden you're flying in the air, and he's clicking his heel, and then all of a sudden you're seeing his bar fill up again. And you're like, what the heck? Because
ain't nothing you can do.
His second bar, as he clicked his heels, he would regenerate himself. So
could he, if you got one bar down and he clicked his heels, could he get back into his first bar again?
Once you're done a bar, you're done.
Okay.
So
okay, cool.
That was something that, definitely saved my butt on a few occasions.
Did you play this more aggressively or defensively, Shane?
I went full aggressive mode and barely ever blocked, much to my own detriment, as you pointed out.
One thing I don't like is that I just want to say I hate the computer. I hate the computer. I hate the computer.
Yeah.
Because it seems like they could just do a combo whenever, or they can break your combo whenever. Not even a combo breaker. Like you're in the middle of a combo and they're just like, no, I'm going to start my own combo now. This was the same in the arcade mode or in the Super Nintendo mode, where it seems like the rules that applied to you did not apply to them at all. There seemed to be some button reading. I don't know if that's true or not. I don't want to say there is.
Absolutely.
Because we know that. Oh, there has to be, because Mortal Kombat's infamous for it, especially Mortal Kombat 2. And so, like, there's a lot of times where, like, there's no way they could pull that off. If I can't pull that off, if I'm in the middle of a combo, they just can't duck. If I can't duck. So the balance with the computer is a bunch of horse shit. I wish I had a human being like couch co-op I could play it with against, but I don't. But yeah, it seems like the rules didn't match. Did either of you have? It sounds definitely you, Mike. You experienced that with that kind of crap.
I believe the term I use quite often lately is input reading mother. Yeah, I'll leave the list.
You can cuss here. This isn't Twitch. You can or YouTube. You're good to go.
Yeah, but once I start getting one swear in, I'll have about 40 here. We're talking about idle here, so I think we want to keep this stream under 2 hours. I could probably go for an hour complaining about how when I was taking on Cinder in our last run here against Idol, simply I would put like an eight hit combo in. Then all of a sudden I get to that last hit, and all of a sudden he's throwing out a 6-hit combo and clicking his heels, and I'm looking at myself like, what the hell just happened here?
Yeah, it's not fair.
I hit him and got a quarter of his bar down. He's got 3/4 of mine. It's like, what did I do?
Yo, and the balance, the damage balance is way off kilter in the arcade, because you can get one combo in and you'll be half your life bar out. Whether that's you doing it or the computer doing it, like it's not that way in the Super Nintendo version.
So this was the fighting game equivalent of your quarter muncher par excellence, more than any other game I felt. The rounds don't take as much time, and then you get your butt kicked that much quicker. So it means you got to get a lot more money in there.
I do like the fact that, as we said at the beginning, and I just want to reiterate the fact that you could be a beginner and a noob and feel super powerful at some of these characters. So I guess that would mean the question. I'll start with you, Shane. Who's your main? Who do you like to play as?
Well, like I mentioned, kind of towards the beginning, well, there's kind of three. I kind of bounce between Fulgor, Spinal, or was it Glacius?
Glacius.
Yeah, like
I fucking hate Glacius, motherfucker.
That guy was
why?
great.
Is it because of his slippy slide uppercut bullshit?
Yeah, his fucking teleport bullshit, uppercut bullshit.
It's probably also the reason I liked playing as Scorpion in Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, that I can't fucking block, and then when I can successfully block it, he ends up on the other side of my ass. Fuck Glacius.
So then you try to turn your controller around so you can block the other way, and you're already dead by then. Oh,
pretty much. Continue, Shane. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's usually one of those three.
Who's your main, Mike?
I started with Combo because he just looked cool when I started out. I went with Orchid because I was a 14-year-old guy, and that's what we do. When I ended up getting very frustrated, I went to Cinder because that fireball that he does is so damn cheap and so damn easy to do. Literally 2 forwards at a punch button. Like, you could just spam that over and over and get through most fights, though. The only punch you have to really worry about is the guy sitting next to you in the cabinet as you're cheaping him out like that.
The good thing about the forward punch with Cinder is that he can do it in the air too.
Yeah.
So, and you have to do medium punch with that because if you do the high punch, it sends them flying back and you can't establish a combo. But yeah establishing that combo. I love it. So as you could tell, my main is Cinder. I love playing as Cinder. I also love playing as Eddie Gordo, so kill me. That's the kind of game player I am. I like being cheap and cheesy. And who's the guy who kicks a lot in Tekken?
Half of them?
Big. Yeah, that's all. Okay. See, that's what I'm saying. I like being the really cheap fighting characters in fighting games. So Cinder's my main. I think my second one would probably be Saberwolf, because I think you do the back forward punch, you use the spin punch, and that can go into some really nice combos as well. Particularly in Killer Instinct Gold, because there was no Cinder, so I had to fall back on Saberwolf, whose moveset is very similar to what it is in the original Killer Instinct. Just whatever character can easily go into a combo. I'd say TJ Combo, but TJ Combo is like the bane of my existence because he's a charge character.
Yeah. Well, when I started out with Street Fighter, I was a Honda guy, so that would explain that.
That makes sense. Definitely makes sense. Yeah. Totally.
But that somersault punch that TJ does with the whole back, go forward, and medium kicks, you would just literally somersault right up to you and punch you. You couldn't hit him with a fireball or anything. So that was my cheap way of getting around the fireball character.
I mean, you got to find a way, like a hooligan puncher, getting through those projectiles. Yeah. And there's not a lot of projectiles in this game, to be honest. It's all about getting up close and personal. I mean, there are some, but it's not like the emphasis.
They're so hard to get out. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Typically.
A lot of crowding.
The timing's got to be so quick on them to get them out. So
let's get into something that this is going to be interesting, because this is going to be an aging conversation, I'm sure. We're going to be talking about the graphics, which they were state of the art. They were state of the art in 1995. I talked about how enamored I was with them, but going back, they you know what, they weren't as bad as I thought they were going to be. I'll say that. They're still pretty bad. This is just pre-rendered. I mean, pre-rendered has not aged well. And there's quite a bit of early 3D in the arcade version as well that does not look very good. The original version of Killer Instinct is very, very, very hard to digest visually. It's the fact of the matter. It's not sprites like you were getting out of Street Fighter and King of Fighters. It's more along the lines of Mortal Kombat 2. I think it looks, or the Mortal Kombat series in general, I think it looks about on par, if a little bit better than its contemporaries in the pre-rendered digitized space, but it's not even digitized. So like you look at characters like Orchid and they just look like plastic wax dolls. Same with Jago. And actually the more alien characters look a lot better because they're more fantastical. So like your human characters, Combo, Jago, Orchid, they look weird. They look awful. But like Fulgore still looks badass. But for the most part, this game, it looks bad. What do you think, Shane?
Well, so generally I'm going to agree, although I find it interesting because if you're doing a comparison, at least for me, between like the Super Nintendo Killer Instinct and then KI Gold for the N64, or by extension, I guess the arcade version, oddly enough, I think I actually like the visual representation in the Super Nintendo version better, specifically when talking about the characters. And the reason I say that is I think the Super Nintendo actually benefits from the sort of blurriness that you're getting from those character sprites, for lack of a better word, because man, like do a comparison, right, between Saberwolf from the Super Nintendo version and Saberwolf in KI Gold. He looks real bad. The KI Gold version looks real bad. I'm like, oh, look how they massacred my boy. No, but like it's not great. And it is that like early polygonal, like sort of everything looks like it's smeared with Vaseline kind of deal. Not a huge fan, to be honest. I'm not super into either of the representations that we got going on here. I don't think they're particularly great. At the very least, they haven't aged particularly well. Like, you know, I like I said, I remember seeing this in arcades and things like that. And at the time, it was just like, oh, this looks fucking awesome. Especially when I'm thinking about it, if you like size this up next to, because they had this at my arcade where they had that like big ass Virtua Fighter cabinet, like the giant one. They had that, and then they also had this like coexisting for a while, and just like doing a visual comparison between these two, you're just like, oh yeah, Killer Instinct looks like way fucking better, because at the time Virtua Fighter, while probably looking cleaner as far as like lines are concerned, it was more along the same vein of like FF7, where everybody had like, you know, 6 vertices on their hands. So yeah, I don't know. I guess that's kind of a rambly way of saying that. Oddly enough, I think I kind of like the Super Nintendo version better, although I actually do appreciate the fully 3D environments in KI Gold. And this is going to be a good little natural segue to kick it over to Mike here, because before we started recording, he was actually telling me a little tidbit about that. So Mike, what was it that you were telling me about those 3D backgrounds?
Well, the 3D backgrounds, there was a little advantage that the arcade machines had over any other arcade machine that was produced at the time. For most people, they know what most of these arcade machines just have a ROM in them that runs the game and it just goes through. Killer Instinct was the first ever arcade machine to incorporate an internal hard drive on top of the ROM that they had there. So they were able to store up a lot more footage, a lot more sprites with the characters. They did use pre-render sprites for the characters that they did up with Silicon Graphics, which ended up being a big part of the remake as it went forward here. But the backgrounds were actually pre-rendered as a movie file rather than just as a background itself. And it was adjusted based on the location of where you're at, rather than just being a static location that changed up. They used the extra firepower that they had available. Yes, it didn't look like the cleanest game in the world, but it definitely did have a lot of graphical advantages compared to anything else. Those backgrounds are absolutely awesome. Of course, with the Super Nintendo, the Game Boy, not so much the Ultra 64, but with the other two systems, they did have to dumb down those graphics from 3D down to 2D. They had to make some changes to the characters, which brought it down. I didn't mind it overall personally, but comparing it to the other games that were out at the time, it was just such night and day what they had with the Killer Instinct cabinet versus the other ones that they had available there. You just could do nothing but admire how they looked, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's one of those things that at the time, like, this was definitely, without a doubt, cutting edge. I do agree with Shane in the sense that, like, the Super Nintendo game does not hold up as poorly as you might expect. I think actually downgrading it helped it quite a bit. Yeah. I think the environments, as you were stating with the arcade version, I mean, yeah, there's some aspects of it that have aged poorly, but it looks way better than the Super Nintendo version, as it should, and it still doesn't look bad. Even to your point of Virtua Fighter, I think this game still looks better than the original Virtua Fighter. Virtua Fighter 2 came out the same year. I think Virtua Fighter 2 came out in 94. I would not say it looks better than Virtua Fighter 2. I do think that compared to like the early 3D fighters like Tekken, Virtua Fighter, Criticom, you know, the standouts, it looks it looks significantly better than those games. But at the same time, I'd rather take an SNK game on the Neo Geo over this one in a heartbeat. Oh, yeah. If I'm talking about strictly visuals, or even a Capcom fighter, I don't think there's any debate. I think when you're talking about this game, you're comparing it to Mortal Kombat, and Mortal Kombat 3 at this point, even in the arcades, like side to side, it's a coin flip. I think I like the more fantasy elements of the characters in Killer Instinct outside of the human ones, as I said, because I think they look like weird wax plastic toy figures. But if you get in like the full Gores, the Glaciuses, the Cinders, I think I'd take that over the Mortal Kombat cast in terms of graphical fidelity at this time, any day of the week. 100%. But now you were still going to talk about Cinder. Like, why they didn't bring back Cinder? You said it was a sprite issue, Mike. What do you got on that?
There was just so many sprites involved that when it came to Cinder, I don't know whether they couldn't render it well enough, or they just said to hell with it, we're not putting the effort into this character when they tried to upgrade the game like the way it is. a lot of it had to do with effort because they didn't get, when it came to the sequels, that you could tell that they didn't have a lot of time and they didn't have a lot of money to develop much more than what they had. There was some improvements there, but you could tell that it was, we're just going to try and get this out the door as cheaply and as, we'll upgrade what we can, but we're not going to do too much to it. So,
yeah. And to that point, I know kind of getting on a tangent here, I do find it interesting that Rare was with Nintendo for the remainder of the decade, but Killer Instinct Gold was the last time they really tried to do a fighting game up until 2013. And they had the resources and capability to do so. I just wonder if they just didn't find any reward in doing it. I'd be curious to see why they didn't try to make a Killer Instinct 3 or another fighting game at any other point.
I do believe there is a What Happened Killer Instinct that Matt McMuscles has done that's done a lot of great backgrounds on this.
Oh.
And given the entire story about it, that Nintendo and the developers, they wanted to send the developers a different direction. So then they had to bring in Iron Galaxy. Iron Galaxy is the one that actually got the project rebooted in 2013 rather than Rare itself. Rare was being pushed in a different direction, so that's why they didn't continue on with the Killer Instinct franchise.
Fair point. I mean, they still got to make Jet Force Gemini. Not saying that's a bad game, but it's a weird one.
They got a chance to make a lot of different games
Oh yeah.
And you know what? I think overall it's better off for it because it did need a different coat of paint and it didn't need a different set of touches. We were going into the further generations.
Absolutely. All right, now let's get into some iconic stuff, gentlemen.
Oh. I'm so looking forward to this.
Well, you can kick this off. Let's talk about the music, Mike. What do you got on the music here?
This music is so iconic. I'm going to date this podcast. It is May 12th, 2024 that this is coming out. Our last Nintendo Direct that we had, they announced the new games for the KI Classic. And I was watching different streams as they were going through it. They didn't even get 3 notes out of the Killer Instinct theme. And everybody knows what it is. That's how iconic this music is. Every tune in this game, it's produced so well. It's so identifiable to the character. Like I said, the main theme, everybody knows what it is. Like if you know anything about fighting games, you've heard that theme. And yet once you get to every single level, there's something special that, like for example, in Orchid's level, you have the girl giving you the hype in the background there. With Fulgore, you got the heavy beats going on as you're going on. The orchestra on the idol level, because you're in a big open pit full of lava that you're trying to take out idol with. It's fantastic on how this music was developed, how it was produced. I'm having a bit of a joygasm right now, so I'm a little lost for words and a little lightheaded right now. So.
Wow, Shane.
I mean, I don't even know how to follow that up. Man, it is a product of its time, right? Like even if you weren't familiar with Killer Instinct whatsoever, just listening to this OST, you just be like, yeah, okay, that is some mid 90s if I've ever heard it, in like the best way, right? Like the synth and everything. Like, yeah, no, the OST slaps for sure. It's one of those things that, especially with like the arcade cabinets and things like that, trying to build these things out to really catch people's attention in the chaos that is your typical arcade, and having something like this that has that really just driving, like iconic, very easily identifiable theme song, just works wonders.
Yeah, I'm just going to be echoing everything both of you all said. Just to give credit to the composers here, which is Robin Beanland, and God, I'm going to screw up this person's first name, Graham Norgate. I get the last name. It's Graham.
Yeah.
Graham.
Yeah.
Graham.
Yeah.
Okay. Graham Norgate. So Robin Beanland and Graham Norgate. Now, Robin Beanland worked with David Weiss on the Donkey Kong Country soundtrack, but was not the primary composer. And this is Graham Norgate's first soundtrack. So this is like pretty much the first soundtrack they ever made. This is one of the most iconic soundtracks in terms of its attract screen theme when you're going to the versus screen between two characters fighting, and you get that.
So good.
That gives me chills. That is a fantastic theme. Has any game done that better? Has any game given a better versus theme? Ever?
No.
No.
When you get to the head-to-head, it's fight on.
Yes.
It's like, oh, I want to beat somebody up.
Oh, it's just now the actual stage themes are a bit hit or miss. They're not like what you're getting in Street Fighter. They're not like hummable, memorable. They're not bad. They're very, very good. But when we're talking Killer Instinct, you know exactly what you're thinking about. The soundtrack at the time was so good. You're talking about North America. No one gave a shit about video game soundtracks. We ain't Japan. We ain't buying like the Final Fantasy soundtracks. We're not buying Chrono Trigger soundtracks. We're not doing that here. But people were buying these. This isn't vocal tracks. This isn't have licensing or any major artists. They released a CD called Killer Cuts, and people ate that shit up.
Yep.
Because they liked this game soundtrack. Yes, it is that good. It is that good. And if you don't know what the Killer Instinct soundtrack is, first of all, I think you're a liar. Second of all, if you are not a liar, then you need to get acquainted with it. You'll know what it is when you hear it. This is one of the I don't want to say best. It's not one of the best soundtracks, but it is one of the most iconic soundtracks. And because you know, like if I ever come out like in my head canon, if I'm ever coming out to like challenge anybody, I want to come out to that heads up head-to-head music that just plays in between battles. It is so badass.
I was just thinking that when you were talking about that, I was like, that is why has no one done that? That's the perfect like entry theme.
Because it's too quick.
Dun 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 dun. Oh God. Dun 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 dun.
It's perfection. It's perfection. You can't get better than that. In terms of the sound, let's get away from the music. Let's get into the sound. What do we think about that? I think it's just there. It's okay. It's not as iconic as the music. I like the announcer. The announcer's iconic. That is iconic. The combo sounds. That is iconic. But in terms of the actual characters, I don't think there's really much good or bad really going on. It's not cringe, but it's not like great either.
This is where my take on this is gonna take a turn for south, but yeah.
Okay, Mike.
No, myself, I don't think it needed to be great. Everything else is put together just fine. There was nothing that made it stand out more than anything else, but it didn't detract from it. And I think that's the biggest point of it. Something like this, as long as it doesn't detract from it, it's considered a plus based on everything else we got here.
I agree. Shane, you're about to say this is where you're going to dive bomb?
Yeah, a little bit. Before I do that, though, I did just want to do a quick shout out to like the actual character themes, by the way, because if you go and listen to them, like there really is, like an artistry behind making a track sound like appropriate for the thing that it's meant to be for. And I know that sounds kind of stupid, but it really is true. Like, perfect example, right? You remember how I said I like to play a Spinal? Like if you go and listen to the Spinal's theme song, it's composed in such a way, right, that it's got this very sort of staccato element to it that sounds like the musical instruments are almost playing on bone, like on a rib cage or something. Mm-hmm. Like it's so good. Thematically, those tracks match the characters so well. And I just wanted to point that out. But anyway, about the sound design, I'm a little bit less of a fan of that for actually like one reason. And it's that I actually feel like it does detract from the experience a little bit in that it is absolutely fucking chaotic and like not in a good way. I'm curious as to what the direction was given to some of the voice actors or whoever it was that was recording the sound effects for some of the characters, because the fact that you have a game that is so heavily reliant on combos, pulling off like a 10-15 hit combo on a character who screeches at the top of their lungs every time they get hit is insane.
I love it.
And sounds terrible.
It does, but it's great.
Sure.
Oh.
Yeah. I think it's a little overdone. Like to me personally, like that is actually a little bit of a detractor, because going back and playing, KI again for this episode, that's like one of the things that stood out to me the most. Not that I was pulling off 15 hit combos, for the record. Somebody else sure the fuck was, but it wasn't me.
Computer.
Yeah. Yes. And hearing the same like 15 times in a row is a bit much. It's a bit much.
I think it was meant that this game was supposed to be taken in doses. Basically, if you didn't want to hear that noise over and over again, you were supposed to get good. I know
Thanks,
that's a
Mike.
cheap I know that's a cheap cop. No, because I feel the same way when I was playing it. When you get to hear that scream of Riptor every single time, even though you beat him, and then you got to go back and just hear it over and over again as you're punching him, or as he's screaming as he's hitting you, it does get annoying. I completely agree with you, Shane. It's just, I think they were just trying to say, you know what? We're not going to spend much on the audio for the characters themselves. We're going to take care of the background and make everything else sound good. It was more allocation. Trust me, Shane, when it came to this game, a lot of us, we didn't have a chance to get good because that AI was just horrible. We talked about it earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. 100% agree. I still stand by my statements that I don't think they got in the way too much. I can understand what you're saying, Shane, especially with Orchid. If you're playing as Orchid, like,
the high pitched screeching every time they get hit. Like, it's one thing. What I'm saying is there just should have been maybe a little bit more nuance in the performance. Like there's a difference between like getting hit and like a grunt noise, and then just a flat out like scream.
True.
I'll chalk that up to memory size personally, but
yeah,
I can see exactly what you're saying there. Like if it was today and they did that, I would absolutely roast them over open fire. But back then with the cartridge size the way it was.
Yeah.
But I completely see what you're saying there.
All right. I think it's time to move into our patron pontifications. What are patron pontifications? Well, that's where our patrons pontificate, obviously. So if you want to be part of our patron pontifications, well, how do you become part of that? Well, you can become a patron for as little as $1 a month over at patreon.com/retrohangover. And then make sure to join our Discord, where I will let everybody who is a patron know when it's time to share their opinions on the game du jour. And then we can read them out on this show. And we do read all of them right now. We do not have enough patrons to really cut it off. So at some point we might, if you continue to multiply, and I hope you do. I don't want to say I hope I cut you off, but I'm gonna stop now, and we're gonna read some pontifications, starting with Randall, the PC shill. And Randall says, Killer Instinct brought the combo craze to the 90s arcade scene with wild characters and ultra flashy special moves. The double health bar and automated combos certainly set itself apart from its contemporaries. I only played the arcade version when I was 7 in the early aughts. Thank you, Randall.
All right, next up we have the one and only Raging Demon, the Super Scrub from the Command List podcast, who says, I loved KI. I had it on the Game Boy. Hey, me too. I never missed an opportunity to play it at an arcade or when I got access to a Super Nintendo. Truly underrated series. Yes, it was a bit of a clone, but it was so well made for the time. The endings are hilarious. Thank you, Demon.
I wish I was good enough to see the endings. Thanks, Demon. Thanks for making me feel like schmuck.
We'll live vicariously through you.
He's got to put him up somewhere so we can all see him there.
Exactly.
Our next one here is from Ozzy. Killer Instinct, to me, was the fighting game to beat in the 90s. No other game offered the style, the combos, the music that the title had to offer. It was, in my mind, the definitive rareware title, and I wish it would have carried the series into the future. Fortunately, the 2013 remake delivered on the legacy of the series, and there is still hope that the series might yet get another entry. And that is something that is a big bonus. Sorry, that's my add into this. As long as you keep playing the 2013, they will come out with something new.
Absolutely.
There's my plug for 2013.
Yeah, if you like Killer Instinct, play the 2013 version. It's on Game Pass, so you don't technically have to buy it, but do play it. All right, next is Masked Keaton. And Masked Keaton, who leads our high score challenge, which this month is Rekka Summer Carnival 92. We're at the 2-minute caravan mode. should go check out. And by the way, Ozzy is in charge of our RHIC. Thank you. And we're playing Secret of Evermore right now. If you want to go check that out. But Mass Keaton says, my buddy Tim owned this game, so I played it a lot at his place. I remember the first time we got a killer combo. We whooped and cheered. It was an amazing moment. Great characters, too. And what a soundtrack. I still have that downloaded. Thank you, Keaton. Appreciate it.
Next on the pontification list, we have Matt, aka Stormageddon, from the Fun and Games, Screen Snark, and Reignite podcasts. And they say, to this day, I think Killer Instinct had some of the best music on the Super Nintendo. I remember loving this game growing up. The combo system is still a favorite to this day, though admittedly, I have not played it in many years. My favorite character will always be Glacius.
Glacius. Fuck Glacius. I can understand why he's your favorite character.
Yeah, because he's cheap.
Yeah, you have no room to talk there, cheap shot king.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Our next pontification is from Alt, and allow me to get my voice set up properly for this. Combo breaker. That is all. Well said.
Well said. Got a big one here on this next pontification from Lunchbox, aka the Disgruntled Gamer, who is from Thunderdome Gaming Society YouTube channel. Go check that out. And Lunchbox says, when I first heard this game in the arcade, I knew it was loud for a reason, because it is fucking rad. Sure, I loved Mortal Kombat, but Killer Instinct was taking a wildly different approach at the fighting game scene. The music, flashy graphics, the crazy-ass characters all contributed to why I fell in love with this fighter. Most importantly, you cannot forget about the announcer who calls out your combos. Everything from triple, super, king, brutal, monster, and of course, ultra combo. Plus, when you break a combo, you get the infamous combo breaker. I love that we're having to say that multiple times. The Super Nintendo port was wonderful as well, as it had a CD in the box for the soundtrack. So this game was perfect for weekends at my friends. The 2013 Killer Instinct was better in every way. Mick Gordon did the music, and the roster grew with some guest appearances from General Ram, the Arbiter, and Rash from Battletoads. It just received a 10th anniversary update to the game, and Iron Galaxy has signed on to be the steward for Killer Instinct for at least another decade. Current rumor is we're getting a Killer Instinct 2 very soon, and I can't wait. Well, hopefully you get your sequel here in the near future, Lunchbox. I really hope you do. I'm all about more games for the people who love them.
All right. Next, we have MQ Keith of the Late Great Main Quest podcast. And he says, in my experience, Killer Instinct was a game nobody really cared about. The arcade cab was always free of players, and amongst my friends, it was just an imitation of the other games that came before it. It was ugly too, still is. So imagine my shock when the franchise got rebooted in 2013 and people loved it. Were people asking for that? Killer Instinct dropped off the face of the earth. Either way, I heard good things about the 2013 game, never played it, and hear how amazing the first game was in hindsight. I don't have any recent experience with the original game, but my memory of nobody really cared is all I've got. You can always rely on Keith to bring the outside perspective. So thank you, Keith.
Gotta love the contrarians.
That's right.
I will bring up that Killer Instinct was actually a highlight game at EVO last year, but I'll just leave it at that point. So up next on the pontifications is Van Fernal from Super Garbage Day. You could die by staring at boobs. 10 out of 10.
Perfect.
Well said. Well done.
Very well said. Up next is JC. And as I said last episode, and I'll continue to say every single time I get a comment from JC here that I get to read. Beautiful art over there on Instagram. If you want to follow their Instagram account, I'm sure they'll post it over there in our Discord. So go check that out. Things like Jay Chazes. I know I said that wrong because it's Portuguese, but go check that out. Beautiful artwork, especially when he does Fist of North Star stuff. But he says, I fucking love Killer Instinct. When I first seen and heard the arcade cabinet, it just felt like it didn't belong in this world. I get to say it again. Combo breaker. And then Rare somehow managed to port it to the Super Nintendo. Yes, compromises were made, but it was one of the most advanced looking titles on the system. Not only it looked and sounded great, killer cuts, anyone? It also played so damn well. The 2013 release is criminally overlooked and well worth firing up as well. Of course, with the volume all the way up. Killer Instinct is the only fighting game I've ever been good at. Now, as an adult, I can't remember any of the combos, but I'll never forget kicking ass with Cinder, of course that's Cinder Brothers right there for the win, and appreciating Orchid's weird pointy tits. Thank you, JC.
They're like semi-melted Hershey's Kisses. Anyway,
But they're still kisses.
that is true. Kiss of death, apparently. All right, next up, we've got Storm Beagle of Retrotopia, who says, I played a bunch of KI Gold with friends on the 64 and would play the arcade cabinet whenever I got the chance. I was never any good at it, but I remember it being a great game, and the character select and ladder screens are very nostalgia-inducing for me. Thank you, Storm Beagle. I, too, am not good at it.
And our final pontification here for this week is from one of the favorites around here, this Chimera, as it's described in every week. From the Game Over Hell YouTube channel. Make sure you guys go give him a subscribe as well. Killer Instinct is a game that I experienced very little of. Most of my experience was playing the N64 game with my brother and having a blast. If anything, because we didn't have access to better fighting games. None of which were on the Nintendo 64. When I played it on the SNES, I used to think it was a worse Mortal Kombat. I thought the characters looked ugly and had terrible names. I kind of still do, but Classic Fulgore was and still looks really cool. The first really was just a game that came and went from my point of view. Sorry, I have basically no nostalgia for the SNES game, but a lot of nostalgia for Killer Instinct Gold instead. To say something doesn't look like shitting on the game, I think the game is good at easing you up to combos, and I remember them being as fast as Mortal Kombat's combos, but a lot less difficult to pull off. I like that. It made me feel like I was better than I really was. I think I can at least appreciate that Rare was really trying to fill the gap at Nintendo's late SNES and early N64 years for hardcore edgy fighting games with the KI series.
That's a pretty good synopsis right there. I like his evaluation of it. All right. But that leads us into our own personal thoughts about what we think of this game. As we do each episode when we have a guest, they have the final word for whether or not they believe this game holds up today. Shane, would you like to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I can go first. That's fine.
Go for it.
Yeah, so despite the fact that I am absolute fucking dog water at pretty much every fighting game, with the exception of probably Mortal Kombat 2, and even then I'm just like passably okay. I'm still going to say yes. I actually think this holds up very well, as a matter of fact. Now, graphically, as we talked about earlier, maybe not quite so much, but it's nothing truly awful. And the gameplay, because really when you're talking about, fighters like this, the thing you're going to really, really care about is it mechanically sound? Does it feel good to play? And the answers to that for Killer Instinct are, I would say, a pretty solid and resounding yes. Just because I suck at it doesn't mean that it's not good. I think it is still a worthy experience, even to this day. I mean, you could certainly make the argument that, Killer Instinct 2013 is probably going to be a better experience overall if you just want to play a Killer Instinct game. That's there for you, and I think it's a lot more fleshed out at this point, given that I can't believe it's been over 10 years, by the way. That is wild.
That's wild.
Yeah. I feel like I remember when they announced that. But anyway, besides the fact that I'm old, I think both of them, whether it's the Super Nintendo version or if you're talking about KI Gold on the N64, or even if for some fucking miracle reason you can find a cabinet somewhere, it's still a good time. And of course, with fighting games like this, it's even better if you've got some friends to, beat on and then throw elbows at when they inevitably play Cinder. So there you go.
Oh, the elbows.
And you don't have to worry about that stupid AI.
Yeah, true.
I'm eating my words because last week I openly questioned if any Rare game would hold up today, because our experiences with GoldenEye not holding up and our opinion that Donkey Kong Country 2 didn't exactly hold up to a very unpopular reception. We own it because we didn't feel that way, but whatever. I openly like, you know what? Rare probably just made all shit. This game's not shit. This game's good. Killer Instinct, it is a product of its time. It will take some adjustment to get used to, but this is a game that when I was getting my ass kicked, and I got my ass kicked a lot, it wasn't that I was feeling like the game is just cheap on its own. Is the arcade game cheap? Yes, but all arcade games are cheap. That's just what you get in an arcade fighter, especially the further you get into it. It's just going to rake you over the coals until you become an absolute expert. That's just what arcade fighters do. I mean, everyone knows this. But I feel like this has depth. This has a skill-based system that once you get used to it, it's very rewarding. And it's something that if you and your friends get good at it, this is something that today you can still have a great time brawling out with. So I think that Killer Instinct holds up, whether it be the arcade mode, as long as you're playing against somebody else, or the Super Nintendo mode, as long as you're playing against somebody else, it's going to hold up. It's mechanically sound, as Shane said. The inputs are easy to pull off. It's very responsive. It's snappy. It makes you feel like a badass when you pull off a combo. The music is fantastic. That's all you really got to say. Killer Instinct holds up to this day. What is it? The first fighting game I'd play? No, but it's certainly better than all of those Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat clones that came out during this time. It's certainly better than all those Street Fighter Mortal Kombat clones that came out during this time. By far, by a lot, way far. So yeah, go check out Killer Instinct if for some reason you haven't, or you're staying away from it. I'm looking at you, Keith. Holds up. All right, let's get the final word here from Mike. MikeTheRef, let us know. Is this getting the 1, 2, 3 of good or bad?
Definitely, I'm going to say good, but I'm also going to temper that for a lot of people. If a random person's going to come up to me and ask me if this is a good fighting game to play, I have to ask what your expectations are. If you're going to look for a game that you're going to sit there and play for hours and hours and hours on end, you're not going to enjoy this game because it is limited in what it can do, and that's just the style of the time. If you're looking for something you can sit down and maybe play for a couple hours, learn some combos, beat up some people and whatnot, between the graphics, the sound, the atmosphere of the game, I feel this game holds up better than a lot of the games that have come out in this time. Like you can look at something like the Breakers Collection, you can look at Street Fighter 2, you can look at Mortal Kombat 3. Comparing all three of those, you're typically looking at a little bit more limited compared to what you're seeing here in a Killer Instinct game. But if you're looking for something a lot more expansive, do yourself a favor, get the 2013 game. The music has been remastered by Mick Gordon, who did an absolutely fantastic job taking the themes that they had here, that Beanland and Norgate did, and turning them into something absolutely spectacular. The arcade graphics are great. These ones helped out with it. But if you're looking for side to relive the memories, have a great time, enjoy some great music, this is a can't miss game, in my opinion, if you're looking for a good fighting game.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mike. That means that all three of us have said this game does hold up today. We had some caveats, of course, as we normally do, but yeah, Killer Instinct, that's a winner. And first and foremost, Mike, this concludes the episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. I had a great time. It was finally nice talking to you over a mic instead of over some text boxes. I really do appreciate, you spending some time and hanging out with us today. Thank you so much.
I am very thankful for you guys having me on, and I want to give a very special thank you to Shane, because I do understand that this is not his forte of genres that he likes to participate in, and being the trooper that he is, he was able to, survive a fighting game, and I think he actually enjoyed it secretly there.
I mean, I don't know if it's so secret. I mean, There are some games I've straight up been like, I don't fucking like this game. You guys can talk about it for the next hour. But no, I mean, Killer Instinct's pretty solid. If I took the time to be good at it, I'd probably enjoy it even more. But I kind of dig it in its own way. Also, as just a quick, like, sort of tangential aside, could they possibly have picked anybody better than Mick Gordon to do the music for the 2013 version? I mean, come on. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
No, straight up. I'll just say it. No. Looking at all the trailers that Maximilian Dood did, they're absolutely spectacular, getting everybody hyped up for that game. With all things put together on that remake there, like Killer Cuts 2 should be coming out sometime, but this is a digital age, so nobody ever worries about that.
Right.
But I would guarantee you Killer Cuts 2 would absolutely go nuts.
Well, we did just shill someone else's work, but it's time to shill our own work. Meaning that, Mike, I got to ask you to let the people know where they can find you out there on the interwebs, where they can find the massive, amazingly successful Backbreaker Media and all its entities. Where can we find you on the internet, Mike?
Okay, before I begin, I'll just let everybody know we're roughly around 1 hour and 41 minutes right now. Skip to about 2 hours if you don't want to listen where I'm at. So this might take a little bit here. Most often you can catch me live at twitch.tv/MikeTheRef. We do AEW sidecasts for Wednesdays, Saturdays, and any pay-per-views that come up on the Sundays. Might have a certain guest on here in a few months here joining me here, but that's something I got to discuss later. I also do a lot of sports games. I do one RPG game at a time. Currently, we're doing Tears of the Kingdom, but I've done the Bayonetta series. I've gone back to some classics, like classic Devil May Cries. We got a whole bunch planned over there. If you're more into YouTube videos, youtube.com/@backbreaker_gaming, because somebody actually took the one without the underscore in it. We have daily content from 4 of us, including a lot of Pokemon stuff. There's a bunch of different contributors joining that channel there. But if you're into the wrestling, both high end as also as local, youtube.com/@backbreaker we do have sidecasts. We do have special matches, a lot of comments and whatnot. If you really want to know about everything, I'll do it the simple way for us. Link tr.ee/MikeTheRef and everything's there for you. Once again, thank you for having me on here. This has been an absolute pleasure being on here.
And once again, thank you. It's a pleasure having you here. And just so everyone knows, I can almost guarantee every Wednesday, except when there's no Dynamite or one of us is at the event, that you can see me hanging out on Mike's Twitch channel, talking. So if you like wrestling and you just want to do a watch along, you want to chat with me and chat with Mike, head on over to his Twitch channel, which you can find that Linktree link over there. And I'm sure they'll be down in the show notes below. So go check that out.
And quite often we're not talking about wrestling. So just come out and hang with us.
Absolutely. Shane, let's close this one out, dude.
Oh man. Well, speaking of trees and links, boy, do we have one of those. Apparently that's an old person thing. That was news to us.
Yes.
But then again, I guess that kind of tracks. So, whatever. We'll own it.
We are old.
We'll own it. The Killer Instinct remake came out 11 years ago. Anyway, so hey, if you like what we're doing here, and maybe this is the first time that you've listened to the show, in which case, welcome. We're glad you're here. We hope you enjoyed your time with us. And if you did, let me be the first to tell you that we have so much more available. We are slowly creeping up on 10 years as a podcast, which is absolute insanity. And the happy byproduct of that for you is that there is just an absolute bevy, a cornucopia, one might say, of stuff to just insert directly into your ear holes. So if you want to check that stuff out, along with all of our other goodies, whether that's the Patreon, if you'd like to support the show in that fashion, perhaps the merch store, pick up some sweet swag, or, our socials, or maybe our YouTube channel where we post our our Twitch VODs, which Chris is obligated to tell you about in just a moment, as well as video versions of all of our episodes. All of that is right there at the Linktree. So just head on over to Linktree/Retro Hangover. That's linktr.ee/Retro Hangover. And Chris, we probably don't do it nearly as good as Mike does, but when we are allowed to stream on Twitch, what are we doing over there? What can people expect?
I mean, you're absolutely right. We don't do it as good as Mike, but if you do,
liars.
If you do want to see what we can do and you have nothing better to do on a Sunday night, head over to twitch.tv/retro hangover and you can see us play a game of some kind where we have interesting conversations, chill out, and just have a good time as well. And that starts at 9 p.m. Eastern time on Sundays over at twitch.tv/retro hangover. We hope to see you there. Shane.
Well, I suppose with all of that now being said, until next time,
play with your ultra joysticks.
Nice.
Shane here with a quick message. You know, the one rule Chris and I have always gone by regarding advertisements is this. It has to be something we use and can personally vouch for. If you know me, you know I love coffee. And Bones Coffee Company has been my go-to for home brewing for quite some time now. Their small batch beans come in an impressive variety of flavors like Mint Invaders from Chocolate Space, or Electric Unicorn, which I swear tastes exactly like Fruity Pebbles. And the best part? No added sugar or calories involved, just natural flavors infused right into the beans themselves. Build your own sample pack of 5 4-ounce bags to find out which flavors speak to you, or jump in head first with full 12-ounce bags. They've even got K-Cups. Step up your homebrew game with Bones Coffee by visiting bit.ly/RHPBones. That's bit.ly/RHPBONES.